Today, I'm going to be showing you how to stop your voice sounding really crappy like this and sounding a lot more cinematic and professional like this. We're going to be doing all the alterations inside Adobe Premiere Pro, but if you use Final Cut or DaVinci or any other editing software, then you can still carry on watching this video. All the plugins that I'm going to be using are native to Premiere Pro, but the tools that I'm actually going to be using, such as EQ and compression, will be available in any type of editing software. Therefore, all the techniques that I'm going to be going through are definitely transferable. Now, the first thing you need to start off with before you even get in Premiere Pro or even start recording is to make sure you have a good sound source. At this moment in time, I'm not using the microphone which is built into my camera. I'm actually using a Rode NTG 4 Plus. This external microphone is on a boom arm, which is literally at the end of my finger right there. So literally just outside of frame, maybe, what's that, about 6 inches away from my mouth. It's very direct and sounds really nice directly at source. Unlike if I was to use just the camera microphone, it sounds a little bit different, and that's putting it politely. And what we want to be doing is polishing something that sounds nice to begin with and improving on it rather than polishing a turd, because yeah, that ain't gonna get you nowhere. If you want to pick up one of these microphones or any of the other microphones I recommend, I'll leave a link down in the description box below. Make a start with that first. Now, inside Premiere Pro or any of the editing software that you're going to be using, we're going to be using 3 different tools, and that's the only 3 tools I really ever use. The first one is some kind of gain plugin which allows you to adjust the volume. You've got a second one which is EQ, and a third which is compression, but I'll get into that in a moment. So just for reference, this is how the clip sounds straight out of camera. This is a sound test from the Sony a7S Mark III and the Rode NTG 4 Plus. It's not bad, but we're going to make it better. So the first thing we're going to do is come over to the effects and type in amplify. We're going to grab that and drag that onto here. Now, if you don't have amplify available, so let's say you're using Final Cut, you can actually use any other gain plugin. All we need to do is turn up the volume of that clip. Now, one thing you don't want to do is open up the clip and actually turn the volume up here, because this is after all of the plugins which we're going to be using. We want to do it straight directly after the source. Now, the volume for this clip isn't too bad at all. When you play it back, it does come in around about -18 to -12, but we're going to turn that up just by about 3 to 4 dB. Now that the gain plugin or amplify, because I'm using Premiere Pro, has been added to the clip, you can come across to effects controls, come down to the plugin, press edit, and we're just going to turn that up to around 3 dB. And you can see that it's around -12 dB now. Now, the next thing we're going to do is add a compressor. So we're going to come across to effects and we're going to search for dynamics. And inside Premiere Pro, you have dynamics and dynamics processing, but the one I use is just the normal dynamics one. Add that to your clip, come across to effects controls and click on edit. Now, we need to enable the compressor by ticking it, and then we're going to make a few adjustments before we start playing back the sound. We're going to change the ratio to around 2.5. We're going to increase the attack to around 5 milliseconds and then the release to around about 100 milliseconds. Now the compressor set up, what we need to do is work out the threshold. So we're going to play the clip back, and as it's playing back, we need to adjust the threshold so the loudest parts of the clip is decreasing in the compressor by around about 3 to 6 dB. But when you play it back, you may notice that the actual audio volume has decreased to around about -18 now. But we want the actual finished clip to be around -12, so what we're going to do is go to the makeup gain and increase that to around 6 dB. This is a sound test from the Sony a7S Mark III and the Rode NTG 4 Plus. This is a sound test from the Sony a7S Mark III and the Rode NTG 4 Plus. Once that's done, the next step is to add EQ to this, because we want to tidy up certain frequencies within my voice. And the movements that I'm going to make will differ ever so slightly depending on the microphone that you're using, the environment that you're in, and also your voice. But what I'm going to go through is a few key things which you should do to all your EQ and give you a few pointers. The first thing you want to do is enable the high pass filter, and what that does is gets rid of all the bass frequencies entirely below a certain point. At this moment in time, it's set to 40 Hz, but we're going to increase that to around 80 Hz. So anything in my voice below 80, it disappears. Another one I always go for is around 1000 Hz. Everything always seems a little bit nasally, so I get 1000 Hz and just pull that down ever so slightly. We're literally talking like 2 to 3 dB at most. If your voice sounds a little bit muddy, then take out around about 500 to 600 Hertz. If you want a little bit more bass in your voice, add around about 100 to 200 Hertz. If you want a little bit more presence in your voice, then add around about 3000 to 4000 Hertz, and any bit of sparkle, go anywhere around about 10,000 using a high shelf filter. If you hear a frequency in your voice that you want to get rid of, then increase one of the numbers into a peak, look for that frequency in terms of pitch, make sure you decrease the frequency in terms of decibels, just enough to get rid of it, but don't go too much because it can start to sound a little unnatural. If I'm honest, something I've found with EQ is that it's always better to subtract rather than add to it, because adding to it will only add to your problems, not take away from it. Two of the tools that I reach for sometimes is a multiband compressor and also a limiter. Both of them are variations of the compressor we've already used, but go a little bit further and you can dial in the perfect sound. If you feel like your voice is a little bassy, but only when using certain words, most people will reach for the EQ and bring down the bass, but that's bringing down the bass of your voice for all words. Now with a multiband compressor, you can bypass all the bands bar the bass frequencies, increase that band so it covers around about 100 to 200, sometimes up to 500 Hertz, and then bring down the threshold similar to what we did before on the other compressor, just to make sure that we're picking up particular words which are much bassier. And then sometimes I add the limiter, and what the limiter does is just stops everything from going past a certain threshold entirely. This is always useful if you're outside vlogging and you've got something really noisy, unexpected in the clip. Obviously you have no control over that. You don't want to blow the eardrums off your viewer, so you sometimes just add a limiter just for that particular clip, and then you can always bring that down if needed. Once you get to this stage, all you need to do is select all of them inside your effects controls panel, right click, and then save that as an audio preset. And then all you need to do is drag the audio preset onto the rest of the clips inside your project, and you've got all the same preset across the whole thing. Now, if your audio volume from the microphone into your camera is slightly different on a different video, you don't need to worry. Remember the gain plugin or amplify that we added right at the very beginning? All you need to do is go into that and increase that or decrease that so your compressor is reaching the same amount of gain reduction. Like before, it was between -3 and -6. Make sure you do that, and therefore all of your audio will be affected the exact same no matter what clip you put through it. This is a sound test from the Sony a7S Mark III and the Rode NTG4 Plus. This is a sound test from the Sony a7S Mark III and the Rode NTG4 Plus. If you want to save yourself some time and pick up my audio preset pack, that will get you around 85 to 90% of the way there. Just do your final little tweaks. I'll leave a link to that down in the description box below. Fingers crossed this video has really helped you out. If you want to see more content like this, then make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you do, I'll see you right there at the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.